Arctic cold and some major snow are planning a comeback right in time for the holidays, and I've got all the juicy details in today's video. Hey everyone, welcome in. Happy, what is it? Tuesday. That's right, November 18th, and we are still tracking this massive pattern change, and I think the models are finally getting close enough, and all those teleconnections we've been talking about are lining up so we can really start forecasting this huge shift back to the cold and snowy side of things. Now, before we get to that, we're actually dealing with some warmer weather. For a lot of us, that is, but there's even some sneaky snow possible over the next 48 hours. I'll show you exactly when and where in just a moment. Now, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Gerald, and I'm a meteorologist over at WCCB Charlotte. If you haven't already, do me a huge favor and like the video, subscribe, and ring that bell for the latest notifications. Doing all that helps keep you in the loop. It's totally free, doesn't cost you a single penny, and it won't sign you up for anything annoying. All it does is keep you weather-wise. We're gonna have a pretty busy stretch here on the channel. I can feel it for at least the next month or so. We've got the daily uploads, of course. Also, I'll just go ahead and announce it now. I'm planning a live stream for Thursday night, just about 48 hours from now, with my good friend BGWX. He lives up in the Northeast and is a true weather wizard for that part of the country. He's going to help me break down this epic pattern change, and we'll tell you who we think has the best shot at seeing snow from Thanksgiving and beyond. You'll definitely want that notification bell on for when we go live. Alright, that's enough of me chatting your ear off with all the intros. Let's dive right into the good stuff and get you the latest on this massive pattern change. Alright, you see this loop next to me? This is the brand new run of our European AI model. I mean, it literally just finished, it's hot off the press, and check out what happens right there at the end of the loop. See all that blue plunging south into the United States? That, my friends, is well below average temperatures. There it is! You get one shot right around Thanksgiving and then a huge Arctic blast to kick off December. That's really what the models are starting to lock in on now. We still have a lot of details to iron out, like where exactly this happens, just how cold it gets, and what kind of storm track we'll have to team up with that cold to produce some snow, but we're starting to piece it all together. Either way, the models are really coming to a consensus that this major pattern change is absolutely on the horizon. Before we get there though, I want to break down the short term because I'm seeing some chances for snowfall a little sooner than you might think. In fact, we have a little system moving through the mid-Atlantic as we speak. I think that one, plus another one right behind it, could both tap into some cold air to the north and potentially whip up a band of snow for some of our friends up in the Northeast over the next couple of days. Some of you who might not expect it could even see some flakes flying. I'm talking to my friends up in Connecticut, maybe the Hudson Valley of New York. Heck, even parts of the I-95 corridor could see some snow out of that. So, I'll break that all down here in a second, but we're watching that, and then we've got this big, digging, low-pressure system out over California that's also going to ride along this warmer pattern and stir up some rain and maybe some snow over the next few days. But for real, that seriously snowy pattern is set to arrive about 7 or more days from now. Alright, here it is. You can see all that rain. Let me know in the comments what you're seeing on the radar right now. It is a pretty soggy one out there, with even some severe weather possible this evening with some of this energy up in the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic. You can even see some of that snow already starting to pop in Wisconsin and Michigan, where some of you are getting snow right now. Again, tell me what you're seeing out there. There's even some snow trying to get going out towards State College and into Pennsylvania. This is happening right now as many of you are watching, and then that next storm system is getting its act together back out in the desert southwest. Alright, so that's a look at what's happening at this moment. Let's time out this system. I'll show you who might get some of that surprise snow, and then we'll really start digging into the long range and talk about the end of the month and heading into December. Alright, here we go. Let's time this out for you. Our latest mesoscale data is capturing this storm system pretty well. It's mainly a rain event for most of us. So, if you live right along the Ohio River, this is looking more like rain. And the same goes for West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland. But it's that band of snow I showed you up in parts of Wisconsin and Michigan that honestly already looks more impressive on radar than a lot of the initial data suggested. That is a great sign for all you snow lovers downstream. Watch what happens. You can see right about here. This is overnight tonight, heading into tomorrow, 1 in the morning. We've got snow breaking out across northern Pennsylvania. You let it play out, and you've got this nice little band of snow. I think even tomorrow, up in northern New Jersey, I believe it's I-80, I want to say, that runs through there, maybe I-76, whatever that horizontal interstate is in New Jersey. North of that highway, you could see a quick burst of some heavy wet snow early tomorrow morning. It even tries to push south, probably not quite reaching New York City, but if you're up in Connecticut or Rhode Island, you could see a quick blast of snow from this before it eventually moves on out of here. But yeah, a quick little snow event is possible. Remember, we've had a lot of shots of cold air in the Northeast, and some of that is still hanging around, cold enough that a quick snow accumulation is definitely not off the table. And then, here comes that next system out of California, starting to spin up by the time we get towards, let's see, this is Thursday afternoon according to the model. Alright, let's talk about potential snowfall totals with this first system. This is from the National Weather Service, and I know you're probably laughing. You're probably thinking, Gerald, why are you even showing me this if this is the forecast? Well, this is the official NWS forecast, so this isn't my forecast. I just want to show you what they have first. They've got a very thin band of potential snow up in northern Pennsylvania. That would be about the only accumulation it shows. However, if you look at some of the mesoscale model data, like the one I just showed you, the HER model, it's painting a nice little band of snow, 1 to 3 inches right here. This is kind of into, again, northern Pennsylvania, clipping northern New Jersey, and even dropping a dusting up to an inch in parts of Connecticut, and this would be overnight tonight into tomorrow. So you can see that band of snow right there, and it's not the only model showing it either. If I show you the Canadian high-resolution model, it also has that band of snow, but just a little bit far south. Again, a good 1 to 3 inches, right in a corridor of central Pennsylvania, so I would not be surprised if you live up in that part of the country. Let me know what you see overnight. You can always drop a comment on the video, you can @me on social media, and I'll repost your stuff if you tag me on Twitter or Facebook. But I would not be shocked to see some quick accumulations tonight. Now you're going to need the temperature to drop below 32 degrees. It's going to be a heavy, wet snow, so it's not going to want to accumulate very easily, but some of us definitely could see a quick burst that leads to some snow sticking to the ground. So that's the near-term forecast. Now let's talk about the medium range, leading up to about Thanksgiving. And then, yes, we are breaking down that huge cold and snow potential, finally making a return right around Thanksgiving, and especially as we head into December. Alright, let's pick up where we left off. This is the European model, so this is kind of old reliable, honestly. It's done a lot better this year than some of its competitors. We'll just leave it at that. The GFS has just been awful this year. To be perfectly honest, not that that's anything new, but it feels like it has been exceptionally bad. So anyway, yeah, here's the current system working its way through. You can see that one. That zips on through. Then comes the next storm I showed you. Here we go by Thursday afternoon and into the evening, starting to fire up back down toward Texas. This could drop some heavy rainfall, and honestly, since it's been pretty dry there after the summer floods we saw, a little rain probably isn't a bad thing for folks in that neck of the woods. That storm then follows a pretty similar track right on through the Ohio Valley, and you'll notice there's no snow here, but I'll give you a heads up. A lot of our cold air has been trending further south in the models this year. So if this big pocket of cold over eastern Canada decides to take a nosedive, we might just get a quick band of snow where the two systems overlap. That wouldn't shock me at all as we head into the start of the week. But for most of you, it's looking like a rain event as of right now. Then the next storm system rolls in, this one hitting during Thanksgiving week. This is next Tuesday, and then by Wednesday, it follows a very similar track, pulling up into the north, and once again, it's a pretty warm system all the way up to this point, which is Thanksgiving afternoon. And it's right around here that the models really start to sing a different tune. Before we get to that, let me show you the snowfall chances. This is the probability of getting at least 1 inch of snow popping up within a single day or a 24-hour window. So, let me walk you through what's on tap for the medium range forecast, which takes us from now right through the Thanksgiving holiday. You can see right here, the European model is hinting at a quick little blast of snow potentially hitting Pennsylvania tonight. And after that, most of the snow chances are bottled up back in the Rockies. You can see maybe another quick shot of snow early next week, perhaps some northwest flow into the interior northeast. But look, all the way through here, right into Thanksgiving, yeah, the chances are pretty slim. Although, you're starting to notice the chances begin to climb right around then. I'm giving you a bunch of spoiler alerts here, my apologies. The chances really start to ramp up, and I'll give you a quick sneak peek. What do you see? Yep, the odds are really going up after Thanksgiving, like immediately after. So, what's the deal with that? Well, there's a ton happening in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and a lot of teleconnection data to sift through. So, let's start flying through it, and I'll give you the absolute latest. And hey, if you're a regular on the channel, you know what time it is. It's time to totally nerd out. Or, I don't even know if that's what I officially call it. Either way, you're about to see me dive into the really deep, nitty-gritty stuff. So everything I've shown you up to now is pretty straightforward, surface maps. I've shown you radar, satellite, all the things you typically see on TV. Now let's get into the stuff we don't show you on TV, the real behind-the-scenes meteorology that has seriously piqued my interest. Alright, this right here is our 500 millibar height anomaly map. So this is basically looking about halfway up the atmosphere. It shows us what kind of air mass is there. If you're in a blue area, you're looking at a colder pocket of air. If you're in an orange or red area, that's a warmer pocket of air. And obviously you know the difference. If you're a snow fan, you want to see that cold blue stuff, while the warmer stuff, well, it's just warmer. So there's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is that the blue areas can often brew up some storminess, not always, but a lot of the time. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this. Alright, we're going to start with the same model I showed you at the very beginning of the video. This is the European AI model. Now, watch what happens. We'll push this forward, keep it rolling, and stop right about here. So this is now through early next week. We've got a lot of orange blanketing the eastern United States, those heat miser colors, as I like to call them, while all the snow miser colors are kind of stuck up in Canada and way out here toward Alaska, with what looks like an Aleutian low developing. But it's not going to stay that way forever. Notice what starts to happen as we move through time. This is into next Tuesday. So, from now until then, it's looking pretty toasty for much of the eastern US, with a few exceptions. Then, look at this, a big blueberry starts to develop, and we get a massive trough of cold air setting up right around Thanksgiving. This is Thanksgiving afternoon. So, the AI model has really sped up the process here, showing that big shot of cold air plunging into the Midwest, southern Canada, and the Ohio Valley. It continues east for Black Friday, with this huge trough of cold air dominating the eastern United States. Then, it kind of breaks off. And some of that cold air gets trapped out west, while some warm air tries to creep back into the east, just in time for the start of December. But either way, it clearly shows that big pocket of cold developing. Now, what about the standard European model? That was the AI version. What about the OG, the physics-based model you hear so much about on social media? It starts the same way, with a big pocket of warm air in the eastern US, but then it brings that blue in right on time for Thanksgiving. This is Thanksgiving afternoon, looking pretty close to its AI counterpart, almost like it's starting to catch up. So, the AI model is leading the charge, and the physics-based model is playing catch-up, if you will, showing that big blue blob dipping down into the eastern US. And then, in the long range, it keeps that cold air locked into the eastern US to kick off December. You put all this together, what about the ensembles? They're always a good tool for the long range. I'll kind of skip through the boring part again. It's going to be warm for the next week. Pretty much all the models agree on that. Then here comes Thanksgiving. You see that blueberry developing, that trough, those snow miser colors, and it holds it over the eastern US through Black Friday. But then it shifts it back west right around the start of December and lets that southeast ridge rear its ugly head again. So, out of all of these, which one do I think is the most likely scenario? Well, to really figure that out, we need to dig a little deeper into some of that teleconnection data. So let's go ahead and do that. I think it'll really clarify the highest probability of these scenarios, especially as we get toward the end of the month and into the start of December, all right? If you thought the last map was some nitty-gritty, nerdy meteorology stuff, well, we're about to take it to a whole new level. So bear with me, I'm going to try to explain this to you, to the very best of my ability. We'll start with this. So, the one term you hear thrown around a lot this time of year is polar vortex. Basically, that's just the huge pocket of frigid air that sits over the North Pole up in the Arctic. And what happens is, sometimes it can weaken and break down, sending shots of that Arctic air southward. Now, is that going to happen? We've heard a lot of buzz about that on social media. The latest European model definitely hints at it. Basically, anytime you see this kind of chart start to dip down, especially if it gets below this pink line that I'm going to draw in right here, that indicates something called sudden stratospheric warming. Or, to put it simply, the polar vortex goes from being really tight and strong to loosening its grip, letting some of that cold air escape to the south. A lot of the European model data here suggests that will happen toward the end of the month, and that is exactly what you just saw in the ensembles as well. It's bringing shots of that cold air down south. So, this piece of the puzzle lines up perfectly. Now let's take a look at another piece. This is the MJO, or the Madden-Julian oscillation. Basically, what this is a giant wave of rising air that likes to circle the globe, and sometimes, when it gets closer to our part of the world, it can really boost our chances for winter weather during this time of year. And I do want to apologize, I actually showed this to you incorrectly in the past couple of videos. Somebody in the comments made a fantastic point, and I didn't even realize I was reading the map wrong. I had the phases right, but missed a key part, which was what the dates represented. So, I'm sorry about that. We all make mistakes, and that includes me. But basically, where we are right now is right in here. We're in phase 6. Ignore all of this line stuff over here, that's the past. We are really starting right here in phase 6. And if you want to know what the phases are, just look up here at the top. You can see how I've circled the numbers. Here's 6, here's 7. Get it? 6, 7, right? Please clap. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 8. And then, 3, 4, 5. So those are the phases. That's what's on this chart. Right now, we're in phase 6, but a lot of the data shows that right after Thanksgiving, sliding into phase 7, and then as we hit the start and middle of December, it moves into phase 8. Now, once we get into phase 8, that's when things really start to get interesting for us snow lovers. Phase 8 and especially phase 1 are, generally speaking, the perfect setup for some serious winter weather chances to really ramp up across the United States, particularly in the eastern half of the country. And hey, it could happen at the perfect time, right? We're talking just in time for Christmas and rolling into New Year's, but that also means we gotta wait for that time frame to arrive, because right now, we're actually in a slightly less favorable phase. We're currently in phases 6 and 7, so that's one clue telling us things might not be super snowy in the immediate future. Alright, so let's file that away. We've got one piece of the puzzle, the sudden stratospheric warming. Try saying that 5 times fast, which is pointing towards a big blast of cold air. But the MJO is saying, hold on, maybe not until later in December. So what we need is a tiebreaker, another piece to this weather puzzle. And that brings us to the NAO. The NAO has 2 distinct phases we need to watch, a positive phase and a negative phase. And let me show you what each one brings to the table. On the right, you've got the positive picture, and on the left, the negative. Now listen up, because this is key. If you want snow and cold in the eastern US, you are rooting for a negative now. If you're a fan of warm, balmy weather, what I call heat miser weather, then you're hoping for a positive NAO. You can see exactly what happens. Basically, in a negative phase, the jet stream takes a big dive down into the eastern US. That's what unleashes the cold and fires up an active storm track right along the east coast. A positive phase, on the other hand, gives us more of a zonal flow, meaning the jet stream just zips straight across, which is not a great recipe for snow. Now, it doesn't mean it's impossible, but you're definitely going to see fewer major snowstorms in a positive phase. So, what's heading our way? Well, honestly, the forecast models are still wrestling with this one a bit. The GFS has a lot of different possibilities, with maybe 60% of them leaning toward a positive phase. That would be less favorable for snow as we close out the month and head into December, at least into the first part of December. But the other 40% are pointing to a negative phase. So folks, the models are really splitting after Thanksgiving. We have one camp saying it's going to get snowy, and the other saying, not so fast. And that's really the key takeaway right now. My personal take? I think we're going to see a pretty decent Thanksgiving snowstorm somewhere in the US, and I'll show you exactly why in just a moment. But I truly believe the heart of the winter weather season, the really good stuff, is going to kick in around the middle of December and beyond. That's when the MJO really gets into a favorable spot for us. I think by then, the NAO is going to start trending negative again, and that would be a huge help for our snow chances. So, that's my take on all the large-scale patterns, or teleconnections. But even with all that, I'm still expecting some winter weather to show up right after Thanksgiving. Let me show you what I'm seeing. As I pointed out with the upper level, maps on the other models, there's some pretty solid agreement that a major shot of cold air is on the way. You can see it right here on the Euro AI. This shows the 2-meter temperature anomaly basically, how much warmer or colder than normal it is right at the surface. Again, the orange and red colors mean it's above average temperatures. The blue colors are below average temperatures. And you can see, yep, we've got some pretty warm days on deck for now. For most of us, it's going to stay mild, well above average, until we get right about here. This is literally Thanksgiving afternoon itself. And that's when we start to see this huge flood of cold air spilling into the United States, starting right in the plains. But you can see the Euro AI model lets some of that cold creep eastward. We get a nice blast of chill, basically as Thanksgiving is wrapping up, pushing all the way into the eastern United States. We're talking Arctic air diving down into the northern plains during that same time frame. And then, as we kick off December, watch what happens. The model keeps that really cold air locked into the plains and allows this pesky southeastern ridge to build in. We still see some cold air sneak into the northeast, which actually makes sense with the MJO kind of putting up a fight against that cold air, and maybe even the NAO is pushing back a bit. So what does that all mean? Well, again, I'm still expecting blasts of cold air. But is everyone going to feel the same deep freeze? I don't think so. As it stands now, I believe the East will get a shot of cold air right after Thanksgiving. But I think for the first week or so of December, the best chances for winter weather will stay locked in the plains and points northward into the Ohio Valley. The Southeast will likely stay on the warmer side of things, at least based on what the Euro AI model is showing right now. And let me quickly show you the European ensembles, which are another great tool that shows us a range of possibilities. You can see the warmth in the medium range, but then bam, here comes that shot of cold air right after Thanksgiving. We're talking Black Friday right in here. Again, it shows most of us getting a quick hit of cold, but then you see that southeastern ridge trying to muscle its way back in. So, for all of you in the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi, you might warm back up a bit to start December. But out in the plains, the cold sticks around, and it keeps an active storm track firing up during that same period. And speaking of that active storm track, let's look at the snow chances. This map shows the probability of seeing at least 1 inch of snow within a 24-hour period. It's the same model I showed you before, and yeah, things look pretty quiet for the next couple of days. But right here, this is Thanksgiving, this is Black Friday, this is the Saturday after, and then by Sunday, look at this. The snowfall chances really start to climb in the central plains. We're talking Kansas, Nebraska, heck, maybe even Oklahoma and Missouri, pushing up into the Midwest, and perhaps even the Appalachians and interior Northeast. And then you see these snow chances just keep popping up across the northern tier of the country. Now, it's not reaching down to the Carolinas or Tennessee just yet, but it's a start. We're getting snow into the United States on a more consistent basis. And believe it or not, that helps everyone down south too. All this does is lay down a snowpack, which helps that colder air to become more entrenched and likely to stick around for us later on. So what about the GFS ensembles? Well, they're showing that same snow signal right after Thanksgiving, smack dab in the heart of the country. Now, the probabilities aren't sky high, but it's a much better signal than anything we've seen so far this winter. And it looks like it just keeps coming for areas from the Ohio Valley northward through the first couple of days of December. And then, I think from the middle of December on, that's when more of you can start to get in on the fun. Excuse me. I'm talking about the I-95 corridor, maybe the southeast. That's when you all could start to see your snow chances really increase. But I think first up to bat are the plains and the Ohio Valley northward into the Midwest, starting right around Thanksgiving or so. Alrighty folks, well, that's the latest I have for you. A whole lot to unpack there and a lot to watch as we go over the next couple of days. Like I said, we've got a live stream planned for Thursday night. That's just 2 days from now, Thursday, the 20th of what month is it again? November, right? Yeah, it's been one of those months that feels both incredibly long and super quick. But yes, we've got that planned. And yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch. Alrighty, that is everything I've got for you today. Have a fantastic one. Get out there and enjoy the warmer weather, because it definitely won't last forever. And I will see you all in the next video.